So some people have asked how to make a saltwater solution for cooling your milk and how I cool my milk quickly in the freezer. Buying ice is really expensive and it just takes a lot of time and doesn't cool the milk fast enough, in my opinion. So you make a salt solution with water. So what does that mean? That means you put as much salt in the water as the water can hold. And what that does is it increases the cold holding ability of the water and prevents it from freezing in the freezer. So it will actually get colder than freezing. So when I put this water in these buckets that I then put in my freezer, I chill my milk in the solution, and it cools it from 100 degrees to 32 degrees, 40 degrees within 30 minutes. So it's pretty simple. You just get, what I do is I buy a 50-pound bag of white salt from the feed store. Most feed stores will sell it. It's just plain salt. It's not iodized or anything. It's just plain livestock salt. That's what this is. And you're going to use a lot of it. I'm probably going to use, this is a 4-quart milking pail full of salt. So I'm probably going to use almost all of this in this pot of water, which is holding about almost 3 gallons of water. And you just put it on like medium heat to just warm the water. You don't want it to boil or anything like that. And then you start adding the salt. Okay, so I've added some salt, and you can see that it's made the water cloudy. So you just stir. Until you don't feel any more salt at the bottom of the pot. So then I'll add some more. I'm going to use this big chunk here and just set it in. And you just continue. I will see if I can get this to show you what it looks like when it clears, because that's how you can tell if you need to add more. You just keep adding. Eventually what'll happen is you'll get a fine layer at the bottom of the pot that does not dissolve, and that's when you stop adding. So something interesting that I noticed that I guess I hadn't noticed before is that I've added, not quite half of my salt into that pot of water, and it is almost overflowing the pot now. So give yourself a little bit of room in your water pot to allow for expansion. I guess I never really noticed how much it increased the volume of the water. But you can see we're still dissolving. You can sort of start to hear it not dissolving as much though. I think this pot is pretty close to being done. I can still feel some grit on the bottom. So that means that the water can no longer hold any more salt. That's why it's called a salt saturation, because you're fully saturating all the molecules of the water with salt. So the grit went away. But I think it's pretty close to being done, so I think I'm going to add maybe just 1 or 2 more pieces of salt just to make sure that I get enough in there. It takes quite a bit of salt, so that's probably going to be it though, whether I want it or not to be, because I'm running out of room in my pot. See, the water is almost spilling over the edge now. So I think that's going to be it for this batch. Okay, so my water is totally saturated, and now I'm going to pour it into my buckets. Well, actually just 1 bucket. For right now, I'm going to try and make another 3 gallons. So for this batch, I'm not going to fill it up as much to give myself more room for expansion. So you can see here that this is a 3-gallon bucket, and this is actually right about the perfect level to cool quart jars. For the half-gallon jars, I use a little bit more water. This is a 5-gallon bucket, and it's a little bit deeper. Okay, so I just want to show you, I do my milk in half-gallon jars. Obviously it's just easier, it takes up less space. But so what you would, I was just going to illustrate how deep to make the water. Only needs to be like that, about halfway up on a half-gallon jar. So this solution is very versatile also. I keep these buckets in the deep freezer. I have a chest freezer, and obviously it doesn't freeze, it gets really cold. When I make cheese, I use this water in a igloo type cooler to cool my cheese. I pasteurize my milk, and then you want to bring it down to 86 degrees, and so you can use this salt saturation to do cooling like that. And then I use the drain hole on the cooler to recycle it back into my bucket. So this saturation that I'm using, I made it in the original in January, and it's now mid-April, and it was just starting to get to the point where it needed to be replaced. What will happen as you take jars in and out of this liquid, some salt will adhere to the jars and come out with the water as you lift the jars in and out, and so you lose some of the salt, and you'll notice that the water will begin to freeze at the bottom of the bucket. So that's when you know you need to replace your salt saturation. But like, I've been using that same saturation for over 4 months without having to purchase ice or make ice, or it's very low maintenance, and it saves water and everything. I'm really excited that I've discovered this. I learned this about 3 years ago and have been doing my milk this way. So I take my warm